The last 50 years, there's been a discussion, is this financial capital an outgrowth of industrial capital, or has it become something autonomous? Now, in the volume 3 of usually when the big financial organizations, Chase Manhattan and Citibank and Merrill Lynch, I was the economist for Citibank, when all the economists get together, what do you think they talk about? We used to meet in a coffee shop. We'd all end up talking about volume 3 of Capital. Because obviously, Hillel talks about how do you say capitalism. Well, their way of doing it was to hire Marxists. I mean, who else understands how the system is going to work? So, of course, we talk about where Marx talked about the difference between MCM and MM and said, of course, it's impossible to make money just from capital. Now, my friend Bertel Ullman is publishing shortly a selection of Marx on capital, and there's a wonderful quotation, one paragraph that I want to read from Marx when he's discussing the 1857 crisis. The entire artificial system of forced expansion of the reproduction process cannot, of course, be remedied by having some bank, like the Bank of England, give to all the swindlers the deficient capital by means of its paper, and having it buy up all the depreciated commodities at their old nominal values. Well, I guess he didn't understand the discount window of the Federal Reserve. Someone had mentioned Dennis Kucinich. I'm the advisor for Dennis Kucinich. Not a single member of the Progressive Caucus in Congress stood up for his opposing health care. His labor union membership insisted that he back it. He responded to the labor union membership. And he wanted to keep the committee chairmanship because he's head of the most important committee in Congress. We can have subpoena power over any government agency, because this is the oversight of government agency. You all heard last week, talking of fictitious capital, about the Lehman Brothers trying to get rid of all of this junk mortgages. Citibank said it was all junk, and they wouldn't take it. Everybody in Washington is saying, well, wait a minute, this fictitious capital is supposed to be widespread all over Wall Street. Now, the problem is it took a whole year to get through just Lehman Brothers. So I've suggested going to the Fed discount window. The Fed has taken in $1.4 trillion of cash for trash swaps. And I'm saying you don't have to go into every single bank and overlook them. Let's just look at the cash for trash swaps that they've done. If they're not worth it, Geithner went on record under oath and said that this trash was worth 100% on the dollar. We can now I want to indict him for whatever is indictable if it turns out that this is indeed the case. And I've been in touch with Dennis's staff about how we can hold hearings on this very topic. So finally, we're going to get Volume 3 of Capital back right into the Senate hearings where it belongs. I want to say the one thing about the euro, since I was asked about that. The euro isn't really a currency. You can't have the power of money's value comes from the power to tax. The power of tax, you probably know, no taxation without representation. Without a real European Parliament, you can't have a power to tax. And so I don't really think that the euro is really going anywhere. And when Jeff Summers and I get back to Europe in May, I can guarantee you the euro is going under.
First of all, the question, why is the periphery appear stronger? Well, face it, in China and elsewhere, we have a lot more real fixed capital accumulation and investment going on. It's not happening as much here in the core, but there is a lot of it occurring. Of course, China and elsewhere is not isolated from the financial crisis and from the global financial system. We got a big property bubble going in China because a lot of money has flowed into South China, pushing that bubble, and of course internally as well. But also, Asia got burned with the last creation of this global financial crisis with the Asian meltdown, and they pulled back a bit. And tried to rebalance between financial speculation and real investment. So that explains a little bit why the periphery is not as a serious situation. China, of course, by the way, spent, when the crisis began, It was at the center of it, but nonetheless, it spent 17% of GDP in stimulus. We spent 5%, okay, given the size of our relative economies. So, of course, China responded quickly and offset the decline to some extent. Future scenarios, one, I believe most likely is extended period of stagnation. Slight, recoveries and fallbacks and relapses, just like 1907-14. That can go on for years. I think it will go on for years until you get a massive fiscal spending, which I agree with Hillel won't be war. So it's got to be public investment. And the question is, will there? Most likely not. I don't see that happening, particularly in the U.S., because it means more deficits and more pressure on the dollar. So they're not going to do it in the United States. They're going to figure out how they can squeeze people, the frog in the pot, turn up the heat a little bit more, and squeeze us more and more in terms of wages and benefits. Second scenario, I think if we do have another major financial collapse, which is not impossible, and I think 2012-13 is the inflection point here, whether that happens. It could get even worse than it is on a global basis in the real economy. Third scenario, I think, the state is trying to figure out, and they're trying to figure out, and they're very far from any agreement on a new arrangement, a new restructuring of global capital. But if it does occur, it's going to be one, I believe, in which the capitalist state will up its role in the system to 30 to 40% of GDP. That's the only way they can keep the system going, however that might look. Why the dot-com bust was not observed, I think the question was, the dot-com bust is just one of three concurrent financial bubbles that occurred. The housing bubble began in the United States in 97-98. Asian meltdown, 97-98. Dot-com begins 97-98. And there's a whole series of reasons in terms of liquidity and the speculation that went on that drove all three at the same time. Commercial real estate, how will it play out? This is a $4.4 trillion market in the United States, which is nowhere near recovery and continues to sink in terms of deflation. And, the Fed was supposed to bail it out with its TALF program. It's totally failed. I don't think they know what they're going to do about that market, and they're trying to keep it afloat. I think they're going to be involved in trying to support commercial real estate for some time. Watch the process of debt deflation default, which I think is critical in the downturns. That could continue as well. What's the relationship between real investment and speculative investment, or capital accumulation, fictitious capital, however you want to phrase it? Well, I believe that they aren't mutually exclusive. The process begins with real investment. Speculative investment, fictitious capital, is based upon real investment. But what happens over the cycle is that profitability of real investment, because it's subjected to supply forces and prices begin to wane, begins to slow down, and at that point, speculative investment, which is based upon it, begins to accelerate because there are no supply constraints with speculation. It's all demand-driven, all price-driven, and the demand drives the price, and the price pulls in demand, and you get your bubble until it busts at some particular point. And when you got 10 to 20 trillion out there, and I agree with Hillel, it's absolutely true, where are they going to put this excess money capital? They can't find outlets for it. Emerging markets to some extent, but they still got a huge excess over that. So they find the bubbles, or they make the bubbles in order to get some kind of return on it. And it's just that speculative investment, fictitious capital, is so much more profitable. Maybe it has nothing to do with value, but it is super profitable. You jump in for 6 months, you get a return.